What's good? It's Woog. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. We have Daniel Jacobs, 37 wins and 3 losses, taking on John Ryder, 30 wins and 5 losses. This is Daniel Jacobs' return to the ring since having a very lackluster fight against Gabriel Rosado in a fight that Jacobs won via split decision, but it was so underwhelming that it was an even fight. It really could have gone either way. And it kind of built Gabe Rosado's stock a little bit more than it helped Daniel Jacobs. It only hurt Jacobs because of how bad of a fight it appeared. And Daniel Jacobs is, obviously a former middleweight champion. You could say he's a 2-time former middleweight champion if you want to give credit to holding the regular title. So when Triple G was a long time WBA Middleweight Champion, he was the super champion. So when Daniel Jacobs beat Gerard Fletcher for a vacant WBA regular lesser title, he actually defended that lesser title like 4 times successfully, including in his biggest win in his career, which was his knockout win, first round knockout of then undefeated Kid Chocolate, Peter Quillen. So Daniel Jacobs held the regular WBA title for a few years. He competed and challenged for the super title in that fight against Triple G, in which Jacobs lost a close unanimous decision. And then a couple fights later, he actually won a major title, not a lesser belt, but the actual IBF belt in this case. And he won that one in a vacant title bout against Sergey Derevianchenko in another very close fight where these two guys, Derevianchenko and Daniel Jacobs, were trained by the same guy, Andre Rozier. So Jacobs, former middleweight champion, was one of these guys who was featured on a lot of prominent HBO cards. He competed on the Jean Pascal versus Bernard Hopkins fight. He fought on the Canelo versus Matthew Hatton undercard, the Paulie Malignaggi versus Adrian Broner card. These are all back in like 2011, 2012, 2013. And then his profile grew to the point where by the time he fights like Sergio Mora and they fight twice, he knocked out Peter Quillen in between those 2 fights against Sergio Mora. By that time, his story was being told because he had a period of inactivity due to having to battle cancer. So basically, Daniel Jacobs became a pretty revered, beloved, feel-good story who was also just kicking a lot of people's ass. So he brought a lot of momentum into that fight with Triple G and basically was the first guy to really push Triple G, went the distance with Triple G for the first time in like a ton of Triple G fights. Triple G was like basically making history with like consecutive knockouts while being a belt holder. Like he was just vanquishing everybody. Daniel Jacobs actually made a very good fight with Gennady Golovkin. And then he fought Luis Arias, beat him via unanimous decision, beat Sulechki, who Demetrius Andrade has also beaten. And then that's when Jacobs fought Derevianchenko and won a razor-thin decision against Derevianchenko, again, split decision. And then Jacobs fought Canelo Alvarez, which is one of his only 3 losses. His only losses are against Canelo, against Triple G, and then way back in 2010 against Dimitry Pirog, who was actually supposed to kind of be Triple G's arch rival. That was supposed to be the major unification fight. So Daniel Jacobs back in 2010 was actually competing for Dimitry Pirog's WBO, or actually it was a vacant WBO middleweight belt, and Dimitry Pirog knocked Jacobs out in the 5th round. So Dimitry Pirog's one of these guys who was undefeated, had to retire early due to chronic back injury. So that fight, that showdown between Pirog and Triple G never took place. I look at that as kind of being a missed opportunity in Triple G's career, because now as we reflect his unfortunate decisions against Canelo Alvarez, where most thought that he at least won that first fight, well, he never really had a arch rival to establish a legacy off of. Dimitry Pirog could have kind of been that for Triple G. Instead, he had to knock off, the Marco Antonio Rubios and David Lemieux was a good opponent, but when you look at a lot of Triple G's title defenses, they were against decent to good but not great contenders. So that 2010 loss to Pirog is Jacobs' only other loss. So his losses, again, were to Pirog in 2010, to Golovkin 7 years later, 2017. So think about that. From 2010 to 2017, that's when Jacobs was on his hot run. And then after losing to Golovkin in 17, 4 fights later, he lost to Canelo Alvarez in 2019. And then since that, he fought against Chavez Jr. and then that lackluster fight against Gabriel Rosado. Chavez Jr. came on kind of hot against Daniel Jacobs. Looked pretty good in the first round or two, then sustained a cut. The fight was stopped early, like in the 5th round. It just kind of added to the really unflattering reputation of Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. And this was Daniel Jacobs' first foray into the super middleweight division, where we still don't know how strong Jacobs is going to be at super middleweight, especially now that he's 35 years old. And now he's about to take on John Ryder, who does have 5 losses. I mean, he lost to Billy Joe Saunders way back in 2013, lost to Nick Blackwell in 2015, lost to Jack Arnfield in 2016, and then even lost to, Rocky Fielding, the lesser belt holder who Canelo vanquished between his second Triple G fight and against Canelo's Daniel Jacobs fight. Between those 2 fights at middleweight, that's when Canelo first flirted with 168 against Rocky Fielding and basically just demolished him pretty easily, like almost as easily as he beat Avni Yildirim. So it was not a good look for Rocky Fielding, and Rocky Fielding also got demolished in the early rounds against then champion Callum Smith. But I think that was actually before Callum Smith earned his WBA belt. But John Ryder, since that loss to Rocky Fielding, broke off a 4-fight winning streak, and then he lost to Callum Smith in a fight that most people who were watching on DAZN or probably Sky Sports if you were in the UK, most people watching Callum Smith defend his WBA belt against John Ryder thought that John Ryder deserved the upset win against Callum Smith. Like, John Ryder was coming in hot, was able to collapse the pocket. Callum Smith wasn't able to use his 6'3" reach against the 5'9" John Ryder, who fights pretty low, goes to the body. He's a southpaw, likes to throw combinations. John Ryder's a pretty good fighter when you really see the different tools that he has. Again, he's pretty short for the division, so Daniel Jacobs is going to have like a 2 to 3 inch height advantage. With that said, Jacobs only has a 1 inch reach advantage. We're talking 73 inches against 72 inches. So it's not as big a reach advantage as you might think, just because, Jacobs, is kind of believed to be a taller fighter. But in terms of like arm length, no, it's kind of about the same. And, I always thought Jacobs to be 6 feet 6'1", but he's listed technically at 5'11". So, the height gap might not even be that pronounced. Although, again, John Ryder tends to fight a little bit lower because he's trying to go in, get inside for those body shots. Jacobs, on the other hand, likes to move laterally and likes to kind of fight a little bit taller, use some of his reach, and use his technical boxing ability. So I think that Jacobs is going to want to make this fight against John Ryder kind of a sweet science type of fight where he's operating behind a jab, able to keep John Ryder, pretty much out of his chest area, and more so dictate the terms of the exchange. Problem is, John Ryder he doesn't acquiesce to letting that happen. He kind of demands that this fight becomes a phone booth style fight where he's able to let his combinations go, as he has in those 2 fights since that loss to Callum Smith. Again, controversial or at least disputed loss to Callum Smith. John Ryder since that has fought Mike Guy in December 2020, and then Joseph Jorko in September of 2021, just a few months ago. Whereas Daniel Jacobs fought Gabriel Rosado way back in November 2020. So it's been about like 15, 16 months since Daniel Jacobs has been in action. And before that Gabriel Rosado fight, it was about a year between Jacobs' fight against Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. and Gabriel Rosado. So he's been pretty damn inactive for, the better part of the last couple to 3 years. So we've got the 35-year-old Jacobs taking on the 31 or 32-year-old John Ryder, or I'm sorry, 33-year-old John Ryder. I feel like John Ryder is at a better point in his fight career trajectory in terms of seeing the valleys and the peaks and where you come up and then where you start descending. I feel like he's in a sweeter spot career-wise, even with 5 losses. than Daniel Jacobs. John Ryder, to me, is a little bit of a late bloomer in terms of all of his skills and abilities coming together at the right time. The thing with John Ryder is he hasn't been fighting the elite guys and near elite guys that Daniel Jacobs have been fighting. Again, Jacobs have been in the ring with Canelo, Triple G, Sulechki, Derevianchenko, Sergio Mora, Peter Quillen. Like, he's fought a lot of very good fighters. Now, he is new to the division. So, again, we don't know that his power is going to carry. We don't know how well he's going to take any clean shots from a true 168 guy. I mean, this is an 8-pound difference between those weight classes, but Daniel Jacobs in his last few fights at middleweight was said to be and believed to be and was stated to be weight drained for those fights. It seemed like for some time Daniel Jacobs was really struggling to make weight in those middleweight fights, to where even as far back as his fight against Triple G in 2017, Daniel Jacobs missed the same day weight. So it was only the IBF title that was up for grabs in that fight. The WBA belt wasn't up for grabs, nor was the WBC belt, because Jacobs missed weight. So who knows? Maybe 168 is actually more appropriate for him. What I am taking issue with is the inactivity and just Jacobs kind of it perceived, at least by me, to kind of be 1 foot in, 1 foot out in terms of having total commitment to the sport right now. So is John Ryder, who's a slight underdog here, not a major underdog by boxing standards, a slight underdog, is he going to pull off the slight upset against the former champion Daniel Jacobs? I think Jacobs is going to be able to have some success keeping this fight at range. I think he is the more skilled and sharper puncher. But John Ryder is not a slouch by any degree. Again, rewatch that fight between him and Callum Smith, and even his split decision loss against Rocky Fielding, and watch his couple most recent wins against Jerko and Guy. You'll see that he's able to be very effective by imposing his style. I think this is going to be a pretty muddy fight for Daniel Jacobs. I don't think Jacobs is going to be able to establish a clean pocket versus John Ryder. I think this is going to be a pretty tough fight, and Jacobs is going to be forced to exchange more often than he wants to. So I think that this is going to take every bit of Daniel Jacobs' efforts to win rounds here. I think that he's going to show that he has just enough to pull off a close, and I mean like split decision, possibly disputed and maybe even controversial decision win over John Ryder. I feel like this has all the makings for a John Ryder upset of Jacobs, but I'm going to give Jacobs the benefit of the doubt and say I think he knows what he's up against here. He knows how he performed against Gabriel Rosado. He knows how difficult that the early goings against Chavez Jr. were. And keep in mind, Gabriel Rosado, yes, he did knock out Bektemir Melikuziev, but he's not a true 168 guy. So that's not a barometer of how I expect Daniel Jacobs to really perform in this still new weight class. And, you know, John Ryder, he's fought at 175. His last fight was actually at 175 against a much lesser opponent, and he did look kind of pudgy to me, John Ryder did. But I think that Daniel Jacobs is going to be able to move just enough. The problem I'm seeing is how's Jacobs going to cope with John Ryder continuously working the body? That's going to be a tough thing too, because John Ryder really does love to commit to the body. So damn, maybe I'm wrong in this assessment in picking Jacobs just by a hair. But I'm going to go with Jacobs just because I feel like overall, he's just seen so many difficult opponents and he's found a way to win a lot of pretty tough fights. I think this one is going to fall into that category. I think he still has just enough to edge the near elite, but to me, not quite A+ level elite John Ryder. I think this is going to be a very tough fight, though. I think it's going to go the distance, and I feel like Jacobs is going to win a split-ish majority decision win, 115-113 type fight, maybe. Maybe somebody gets dropped here. Maybe he does he catch... I don't know. Jacobs hasn't really been dropping people, and, you know, as of late. It's been a while. Like, like the last time I saw Jacobs really look dangerous was in those back-to-back fights against Peter Quillen in the rematch against Sergio Mora. So no, I don't think he's going to stop John Ryder. I think he's going to do just enough to win a very close fight. Like, this is going to be as close as Jacobs' fight with Sergey Derevianchenko, something like that. But yeah, let me know what you think about Jacobs versus John Ryder in the comments. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and by the way, where does the winner and loser go from here? Like, how much does Jacobs really have left in the tank? Is he angling for one more major payday? It could be a rematch against Triple G. It could be, I don't think Canelo's going to choose to fight a rematch with Jacobs. It's like, why? But maybe Jacobs is hoping for one more major payday. The question is, who would that be against? Might it be against Jermall Charlo? Might it be against Demetrius Andre? I really don't know where he goes. He is currently fighting on DAZN, so that's worth noting. But yeah, let me know what you think about Jacobs versus Ryder in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.